Welcome back, baby birds. And yes, I was still watching that sloth video. We're going to be talking more about these shortcuts to proving congruence. Remember, we don't have to know that all the sides and all the angles are congruent to prove that two triangles are congruent. We could do little shortcuts here, right? We don't need all the information. Just like how a lawyer doesn't need to have a video of someone shooting someone else in the face to prove a murder, we can also prove that two triangles are congruent without all of the information. That's a nice little analogy. I like that one. I just made that up. So we're going to learn three more today. It's called angle, side, angle, angle, side, and hypotenuse leg congruence. So let's talk about our first one, angle, side, angle congruence. If two triangles have an angle, a side, and then an angle that are congruent, so if you see angle, side, angle, you'll see they're congruent in both these triangles, then you know that the two triangles are congruent. Okay? So let's look at some examples of this. Alright, now let's look at our first example over here. We have these two fine looking triangles. Triangle number one, WVX, and then we have BCA. And if you see here, we have one angle that's congruent to each other. V is congruent to C. We have a side that's congruent to another side. XV is congruent to AC, and angle X is congruent to angle A. And if you see here, the angle is in the middle of these two sides, alright, in both of these. So I would know that these two triangles are congruent because of angle, side, angle congruence. And let's write that out. Triangle WVX. Why did I write an X? WVX is congruent to triangle BCA because, I hope you guys see that I'm shortening my because, of side, angle, side congruence. Okay? Now let's look at this guy right here. If you'll see here, I have an angle. Alright, I have one angle that's congruent, I have another angle that's congruent, and then I have a third angle that's congruent. But I have no sides here. And this is what we call angle, angle, angle. And this is going to help us prove similarity, which we'll learn about in the next unit. But angle, angle, angle does not prove congruence. Alright, so in this case, once again, I don't have enough information. Not enough info for congruence. It would prove similarity. We'll talk about that later. Just put that in the back of your head. But it does not prove congruence. Sorry guys, I don't know if you're congruent. Who's? Now let's talk about angle, angle, side, and how that is different than angle, side, angle. In this case, you'll see here that it's, once again, you have two angles and a side that's congruent. But in this case, the side is not between the two angles. So it's angle, angle, side. And let me show you a little tip to determining the difference between angle, side, angle, and angle, angle, side. Take out that highlighter once again, alright, or a pen or whatever, and if you take your highlighter and connect the two congruent angles, as you did here, the side is in the middle. So you see how if I connect the two congruent angles, the side is also highlighted. It's in the middle. So that's angle, side, angle. If you look over here, if I highlight those two angles again, well, there's no side in the middle. So this is angle, angle, side. The side is not, and I wrote this here, in between the two angles. So that's how we know the difference. So side, so angle, angle, and the side is not in the middle. Okay, it's important to see the difference. So let's take a look and see if we're good at determining that. Well, in this case, let's take a look. We have these two triangles, and we have two angles that are congruent and a side that's congruent. Now, how do I know if this is side, angle, angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side? Well, if you can't see it and you want to check, let's highlight the two angles and check to see if the side's in the middle. Ugh, what an ugly line. Now, if you look here, when I connect the two angles, the side is not in between them. So I would say that this is angle, angle, side congruence. So in this case, I know that triangle YXZ is congruent to triangle MTI because of angle, angle, side. Now in this case, once again, I have two angles and a side in the middle. But let's highlight and see what kind, if this is AAS or ASA. And I'm just going to highlight. I'm so bad at that. Highlight and highlight over here. And you'll see in this case it's angle, side, angle. The side is in the middle of two angles because when I highlighted, the angle was in the middle. See here? When I highlight two angles, the side is in the middle in this case. So in this case, we're going to say that they are congruent this time. I do have enough information, but this is angle, side, angle. So triangle LUV. Why am I putting a W there? Triangle LUV is congruent to triangle MKD. Forgot about a little triangle because this is angle side angle. And then finally, the last one we're going to learn about is hypotenuse leg congruence. All right, now listen carefully because I want you to understand very clearly that this only works with right triangles. Okay, so if you have two right triangles that have a leg and a hypotenuse that are congruent, then you know that the two triangles are congruent. So the first thing, it has to be right triangles. And if you see here, I know these are right triangles because it has that little box. That tells me that these are 90-degree angles, so these are right triangles. It also has to have a hypotenuse and a leg that are congruent. And how do you know which one's the hypotenuse? Well, we're going to talk about this throughout the course, but I'll tell you this. To figure out where the hypotenuse is, you just draw a line across the 90-degree angle. All right, and that's going to be your longest side and also called your hypotenuse. It's the angle across from the 90-degree one. So this is our hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. All right. Now the other ones, your other sides are called legs. All right. So the ones that aren't your hypotenuse is a leg. So here's a leg, and this is a leg. All right. And this is only for right triangles. Leg is over here, and those are the non-hypotenuse sides. Now that we have that all drawn out, and you should have that all drawn out, we want to determine if ABC is congruent to XYZ. Well, normally I'd say that this is AS, angle side side. You'll see that the angle is not in between the two sides, and I'd say, darn, there's no AS in math. But hold the phone, hold it up. If you look here, this is a right triangle. All right, and so I have a right triangle, I have my hypotenuse that are congruent, and I have one leg that's congruent. The hypotenuses, the legs are congruent, and these are both 90-degree angles. They are congruent. So I would say the triangle ABC is congruent to triangle XYZ because of hypotenuse legs congruence. All right, now let's practice this. Determine if the following triangles are congruent. Well, in this case, once again, I'd be looking at this and say, nope, that's AS. I got angle side side. The angle is not between the two sides. See how that angle is not between the two sides? That would have to be over here, but it's not. So I'd be like, nope, AS. But wait, hold the phone. I got some 90-degree angles here. And since those are 90-degree angles, I see that this is my hypotenuse. That's my hypotenuse. I have a leg that's congruent. So this would be HL. It's a 90-degree angle with a hypotenuse that's congruent and a leg that's congruent. So triangle DTE is congruent to triangle RGA because of HL congruence. All right, now let's look at this one. Once again, I have an angle in two sides, but that is not a right angle. Not 90 degrees. Okay, that doesn't have the box. And the angle isn't between the two sides, right? The angle has to be between the two sides. That would just be AS. And there is no AS. That makes me laugh and pretend. No AS in math. All right, there's no AS in math. So right here, I don't know if they might be congruent, but right now there's just not enough info. Okay, so let's write out some proofs now. So in these cases, we're going to write out our proofs that these two triangles are congruent. Now remember, when we're writing a two-column proof, which we're going to do here, you have to mark first what you see in your givens and then write your t-chart. So let's start with step one. We're going to mark what is given to us. So we know that y is congruent to t. Okay? We know that x is congruent to k. And we know that xz is congruent to km. All right, and now we got to write our proof out. So now that we've marked it, let's write out our statements. All right, we're doing a proof. We're going to write our reasons. And whenever we do our proofs, we write out this t-chart. We call this a t-chart or two-column proof where we have statements on one side and reasons. Now once again, we're going to write the things that we know down here. What do we know? One, I know angle y is congruent to angle t. How did I know that? It was given to us. Two, I know angle X is congruent to angle K. How'd I know that? It was given to us. I promise it will not always be given. And 3, angle XZ, not angle XZ. Come on, man. Side XZ, I was getting in that angle groove, is congruent to side KM. And how'd I know that? That was also given to us. I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy that. You're going to think back to these days where everything was given and be like, damn, that was easy. Now, we're just going to write, how do we know? We have to prove that these two triangles are congruent. And I do know they're congruent. And if you look at these, how do we know? Well, this happens to be angle, angle, side congruence. And if you just want to check that, you can highlight the two angles. You'll see that the side is not in between. Do that for both of these. So that is angle, angle, side. So I would say that triangle XYZ is congruent to triangle KTM. And the reason I know that, and this is always, how do I know that? Well, that is angle, angle, side congruence. All right, I think you got the hang of this, so why don't you check this one on yourself, do it, and then see if you did it right. And if you did it right, I'm not going to write everything in here for you, but your final answer, your final part should say triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD, and the reason is, well, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but I'm going to. That is also angle, side, angle congruence. All right, if you do it right, you should see that. All right, that's it for this lesson. Peasy, my homeboys, and we'll check out some sloth videos because they're so cute. And, as always, kiss your mama because she loves you. Amazing.